Traditional search algorithms tend to just take whatever's out there on the internet and kind of regurgitate it onto the top of your page. But the newer generative search engines, things that use a large language model to perform search, are actually much better at understanding what's on the page. And this is something that was hammered home for me yesterday. You might note the date that I'm recording this. There's a little spoiler here. But I went to Johns Hopkins University, I studied AI there, and so when I saw something pop up in my Google Discover saying that my alma mater, Johns Hopkins, was joining the Ivy Leagues, I was like, wow, that's awesome. Now I get to say I went to an Ivy League school. And in fact, if you search Johns Hopkins Ivy League, you get this very prominent, very legit-looking news source here saying Hopkins is going to join the Ivy League. You scroll down to the news story section here, you can see it's also spat out there. We've got a Reddit post reiterating Johns Hopkins is joining the official Ivy League. So the first few results here on the traditional Google search page are all saying, wow, Ivy League school. Pretty awesome. Well, take a look at the date, if you will, down at the bottom of when I'm recording this. So April 2nd. So turns out, of course, that this was a April Fool's article. This was a fake pretend story, hinting at something that's kind of funny if you went to Hopkins, that we're always told that we're, even though we're a top school ranking-wise, that we're not an Ivy League school, so we're not as good as those. So it kind of plays on that funny stereotype. But Google's search algorithm, traditional search algorithm, clearly doesn't get it. It thinks this is a real story. It's looking at things like the authority of the publication, the semantic context of the page, doesn't really read and understand the article, so it just takes this benign but still misinformation and sticks it at the top of the page in many places, many different ways, including some UGC content. Now let's look at the alternative. If I ask ChatGPT with its search function enabled, what's happening at Johns Hopkins, you can see there's no mention of this story at all. It's, changes to administrative funding, upcoming events, athletic achievements, etc., etc. It doesn't bring the story up. So I asked it specifically, is the university joining the Ivy League? And it says it's not a member of the Ivy League. Recently, an article titled Hopkins to Join Ivy League in 2026 was published. This piece is part of the publication's annual April Fool's edition, intended as a satirical joke. So, because it knows the context that Hopkins does this every year, they've been basically publishing the same story about the university eliminating the S in the name. They published all kinds of funny stuff on April 1st in past years, and it knows this context, and it was able to read the article and get that the article was a joke because it came out on April Fool's Day. It's correctly summarizing the fact that, hey, no, it's not joining the Ivy League, it's just a funny joke that they do every year, and it was smart enough to exclude that incorrect or, again, benign misinformation from its summary of stuff happening at the university. So what does this mean overall? It means that because LLMs read and understand a page, rather than just looking at links and semantic contents and words and things without really trying to understand them, it actually gives a huge advantage to LLMs in actually understanding and processing data. And this is one of the first examples I've seen where I can look at it and go, wow, the LLM-driven search is way better because it gets what's going on. It gets the context. It gets the humor. It's not just looking at reputation and links and that kind of stuff. So I think this is something we're going to see in the future, that as these LLMs get more powerful and people use them for search more often, you're going to see other advantages in their ability to understand.